spending on that, but I guarantee there's quite a bit of time savings and cost savings from getting out of those, shared spreadsheets. Then here's some of those project management KPIs and reports and everything that you'll have access to. Don't forget that Project 360 that we saw at the top of the call. And Patrick, any questions around scoping for projects?
No, we can move on.
Cool. Great. So last couple items, I think procurement and accounts payable should go pretty quickly. Not too much that you're having to purchase here. So do you all have a purchase order system in place today, or is that something you wanted to look forward to going forward?
Yeah, we don't. We don't have one in place at the moment, but we would like to get, a PO. Yeah, a PO process, receiving, three-way match, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, so all that is just standard, leading practice functionality in NetSuite. You can manually enter those purchase orders. Purchase request is a little bit different just because your employees can do that from the employee center. So, the same place they're going to track time. They don't have full access to NetSuite. They can still make purchase requests or kind of initiate purchase orders. They can also be if you have any special order items for certain projects, or you do need a third-party contractor on a project, you can have that sales order create a purchase order based on items set up as well. And then, you're already aware of that whole receipt process. And then the vendor bill will give you that three-way match. So probably something that you were familiar with when you used NetSuite before, Tom.
Yeah, we had some issues with uninvoiced receipts, and we had an account for uninvoiced receipts, and we just had a hard time reconciling it. I think it was kind of it was just not very smooth. Put it that way. Yeah,
it could have just been something with how the process was set up and things, and then of course there's somewhat of a maintenance aspect, right, to having those item receipts when they come in a little bit different from the purchase order, a little bit different than the bill. You do need to go and kind of clean those up on a regular basis. So you can use safe switches and those things to help your folks stay on top of that.
I see. Yeah, so there is this will automatically update like the uninvoiced receipts account if we set one up, and then once it's been received. Is that right?
So that'll help. Yeah, it'll accrue your expense for you if you do that item receipt step. So it'll hit your GL and then unbill.
It'll reverse it.
Yep, and then reverse it once you do enter that vendor bill.
Got it. Yeah, that should work for us.
Awesome. And then, paying those bills, there's a AP agent reminder. Oh, I guess one thing real quick that I can show you that's newer functionality, and you can tell me if it makes sense to look at this phase one. I mean, let me go to my administrator role. So there's new AP automation functionality. If people are spending a lot of time, like entering bills manually, you can have anything sent to, like AP at logicgear.com or whatever that is, and then they can actually OCR these, and then it'll create these records for them. Let me go to my AP analyst role. So this is probably the only new thing that you might not have seen. I don't know what's going on with some of these. Got a new demo account. Here we go. I think this one should be good. So this is one that was emailed in. So there's just, some pellets or whatever. It was able to match that to some expense item that I had already had in the system. And then it was able to pull in the vendor. Was able to pull in some terms. So there is some OCR functionality. I don't know if your volume of invoices or vendor bills is really high enough to warrant that right now, but if that is taking AP analysts quite a bit of time, that is some functionality that's out there too.
OCR meaning that these are scanned in, these invoices are scanned in, and there's some sort of recognition.
Yeah, so OCR, so either scanned in, or this case, if I go back, this one was actually emailed. So you can set up, like AP. So this was an email one. So you can either email those or upload them in. And then that has OCR and some AI capabilities that will match, to vendors in your system, to items, or to create expenses for you.
When it does that, does it give the user an opportunity to review and make corrections, or does it post?
Yeah. So that's exactly what this screen is. So from here, if maybe the vendor wasn't actually vendor, it was CDW, I could select CDW there. Maybe I need to attach this to a purchase order. So, okay, they actually already did attach that to the purchase order, but maybe that's, not the right purchase order number. I could select a different, PO number to attach that to, or, add any additional items here too. So if I needed to, maybe add another row of something else. So this is kind of that review screen. And then once you've reviewed it, you can go ahead and create the bill. And then that's when it would get added to accounts payable, or if you needed an approval process there before that.
I would like to share more information related to the input bill here. In Vietnam, we have the standardized electronic invoice. All the company in Vietnam have the same format, HTML format, electronic electronic stack invoice. On the invoice from the Vietnam entity need to be use the same format, and that data will be verified by the general tax department, and general tax department keep on the data there. We have on the ABI to tracking to get all the information of our invoice, input, sale invoice, or budget invoice, all available in the one portal.
Yep.
If you have the API to access the portal, then you get all the invoice for your company immediately, one time, immediately in real time.
Yeah, so I think that's what, and Claudia and I met with BTM Global. So this is our partner that has that Vietnam e-invoicing suite app integration.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and so I think this is what you're talking about. So Claudia and I have reached out to them and have been in contact. And if we wanted to set up a demo or anything like that, I think Claudia can help us with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that if Nexus interacting with the API like that, we can fully automatic API system.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's exactly what this does, is automatically updates that the Vietnamese authorities with any of those e-invoices.
Yeah. For both sale invoice and budget invoice available there.
Yeah, I believe so. I know for a fact sales invoices, and then I think on the vendor side, I think they have a solution there as well.
Yeah. If you don't have any vendor to do the solution, you can ask me. I can share you some vendor to can give you the API solution.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So if you want to take advantage of the OCR functionality, there is an additional license for that. That's just our bill capture feature. If the volume's not high enough, you can always just, bring in those vendor bills or input those as normal through CSV, or just manually through the user interface. And then you can go ahead and pay your vendors, so you'll have reminders that your payments are due. If you can have them paid by check, or if you do schedule ACH or EFT payments, we can set that up to send a NACHA or NACHA file to your bank to help with the electronic payments there. So I guess, Tom, are most of your payments like ACH, or do you use credit cards, still cut some paper checks?
That's a good question. For LGUS, it's all electronic or ETFs. But at MKP, it's all credit card. it's we have a person who just enters all the invoices as they're received, and then periodically goes in and pays them off individually with a credit card.
Okay.
So we would like to move everything over through an AP process. So obviously that credit card process will go away and be replaced with something like this.
Perfect. And that's not a problem at all. They are paying by credit card, so you can just select that as your payment method as well. But like you said, we'll get everybody kind of more in line on that same process.
The traditional issue in accounting departments, and a source or a cause for monthly close delays has traditionally been credit card transactions, simply because of the receipts. Who keeps all their receipts, and how many people has corporate credit cards, etc.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main reasons that we want everyone to go, all the entities to go into to accounts payable. But does your solution for credit cards, does that alleviate that issue with the slowness in getting receipts? Does it add some control features of any sort?
Yeah, so it depends who your credit cards are through. There's a pre-built suite app for Amex. I think it's corporate cards, and then we can automate some of those things through the bank feed suite app. And depending on who your credit cards are through, we can pull in transactions on a daily basis. So as soon as they hit your credit card statement, as far as just like the lag sometimes between purchases and then hitting your statement 3 or 4 days later or whatever, can't always help with that. But we can import those credit card transactions and at least have them, hit your financials, even if they do need to be coded or kind of moved later. So that would be the one way that we could help with there. Are all your credit cards through one bank or one company, or is it multiple?
It's mainly for MKP, so it's through one bank. I guess we'll always have that issue of compliance with vouching the receipts and things of that nature, right? We'll always need to have that process handled outside of the system. I guess that's just a thing that can't be handled anyway with any system.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with the expense reporting, you can upload, your support and those receipts, from the mobile app, and you can get reminders and things in NetSuite, but that's about as much as, we can do. Nobody's built the electroshock suite app yet to really help enforce that.
Yeah, come up with one.
What banks are you using today?
We use LGUS uses Avid Bank. We also have an account with Merrill. And Tina, do you know for MKP who it is?
They have Chase Bank.
Chase. That's right. And then in the UK, it's Barclays. And in Vietnam, it's one of their big, the equivalent of a B of A over here, I think.
For Vietcombank, we are using in Vietnam. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. See,
Yeah.
I told you, just like Bank of America, Vietnam Bank.
Vietcombank, yeah.
Perfect. Any other procurement or AP questions, Patrick?
So, Wayne, what's your suggestion for intercompany transaction? Should that be a different transaction type, or how to streamline the process? So when people enter the invoice from one side, it will automatic pop up copy become the document of the other entity.
Yeah, so a couple ways that we can do that. So with intercompany transactions. So if you do have like an intercompany purchase order, and that gets approved, that'll generate an intercompany paired sales order on the other side. So you'll have a linked intercompany vendor bill and a linked intercompany invoice. And then with intercompany journal entries, you can post those as well. So, we come here.
So it will be a different a sales order type or purchase order type.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, you'll be able to select intercompany sales order. Really, it'll be driven by, you'll have an intercompany customer or an intercompany vendor there.
Yeah,
You create one of those for each one of your subsidiaries. And then here's like an example, quick example of an intercompany journal entry. So since all of your subsidiaries are in one instance of NetSuite, you can just post one single journal entry, and it will impact each subsidiary's books. So in this case, it looks like this is all the LogicGear US subsidiary. But if I wanted to make this is my intercompany, my AP analyst role, sorry. So that AP analyst only has access to a single subsidiary, but they could still see their subsidiary's portion of that advanced intercompany journal entry or that intercompany journal entry. You can go ahead and pull this back up. So now we can see that. So this would be for like a journal entry between LogicGear US and LogicGear Vietnam. So this is just for some expenses. It was from a vendor bill. So since we tagged this LogicGear intercompany Vietnam customer, that would automatically be eliminated as needed. And you don't have to post, both sides of the journal entry. So you can actually post to each one of your subsidiaries from the same journal entry.
So, and this is through the normal. Oh, this is a journal entry, as opposed to
compared to like a sales order. So if you did have an intercompany sales order, you just enter it like a normal sales order, and then you'd select your intercompany customer there.
Can we go straight to intercompany bill and bypass the sales order?
So like just bypass the sales order and just create a bill, basically.
Yeah.
So that kind of, you do need the like kind of standard native process in NetSuite. You do need to use the sales order and purchase order. But you could create just an intercompany bill to a customer. It just wouldn't automatically create the other side. So you do have to start with this like purchase order step.
Okay. So because
sorry.
Yeah, in terms of our process, we normally, for example, get billed from LGVN once a month, and typically it's not a fixed amount per month where it's really straightforward. It's variable every month. The amount is going to be different every single month because of the number of hours and all that stuff.
Yep.
And because of that, we typically just we just get the bill and we put it in the system and we pay it. We don't, if we go through and if we have to create a sales order just for that, we're going to have to do that every time, right at the time of receipt, because we don't receive the bill, because the bill, we're not going to know what it is until they send it to us, right? And then we'll have to create a purchase order first before the invoice.
Right. So
right.
You can, in that case, you can absolutely create just a bill and then enter your intercompany vendor there. So if it was from DWS or whatever, that's my intercompany vendor between UK and my US West subsidiary or whatever, I can select that there. And then so I can enter, vendor bill directly there. It's just not going to have that linked invoice automatically. I'd still have to go in and post that, basically.
I see.
And then while we're on the topic of intercompany, another kind of nice feature. Let me flip to a different account real quick. I know when I was managing multiple subsidiaries and multiple P&Ls, the due to and due froms always got really messy. So one thing that helps with that is this intercompany netting workbench. So if I come here, and this is a different account, so my subsidiaries have different names, but I can see all my due tos and due froms from each one of my subsidiaries. And if any of them ever have, some offsetting payables and receivables, it'll suggest this intercompany netting here. And then I can go ahead and just suggest the netting, and then save that. And it's going to create this journal entry for me, and then, pair the that journal entry to each subsidiary, and then show me kind of what it was eliminating. So that just kind of helps companies stay on top of their due tos and due froms and keep those clean. So now I've got 4,500 pending approval here. I could go in and approve those journal entries, and I've got a nice clean due to due from account now.
So is the system actually tracking like transactions that have been posted on one side only? Is that how it does that recording, or is it just comparing the balances?
So in this case, it's just comparing the balances. So it's not creating that automatic vendor bill without the. So yeah, this is the process basically, and then otherwise you have to have like a safe search that said that there was like maybe an intercompany vendor bill that didn't have a linked transaction. If you wanted to create a custom field and then store that linked intercompany invoice there on the other subsidiary.
Right. So it actually, when it compares the balances, it proposes an entry to get the two sides in balance, right?
Right, and it'll just look at all of those outstanding receivables and payables that are there, and then try to offset what it can, or just create a journal entry to offset a partial amount.
I see. And originally, did you say the intercompany AP and the or the due to and the due froms, those are comprised of transactions at the purchase order or the invoice level, or are they JEs that are posting to those accounts?
They can be either. So they can come from intercompany journal entries, or sale or invoices and vendor bills, either way.
But that last feature where it does the comparison, it'll actually propose a JE. It won't actually propose, here are the AR invoices or the due to invoices, and here are the due from it invoices.
Right. In this case, this is everything that hit accounts payable in the U.S. West, and then everything in accounts receivable. And then if I go to the journal entry, so I can approve this, and then if I look at that journal entry, day 533, it'll take us to the journal entry that it created to offset those amounts there. Okay. So it actually created this intercompany journal entry, and even in the intercompany journal entry, you can tag the intercompany subsidiary or vendor that you're transacting with, so it'll still flow into that same netting workbench report.
So the individuals on both sides would still have to go into do some research to find the specific transactions to make up those differences, right?
Yeah, so I guess what I would say is, so just to kind of simplify things, if you're not going to use this intercompany purchase order and sales order process, it might be easier just to, instead of creating an invoice, it might be easier just to create a journal entry that posts AR and revenue. And then you can still include the offsetting intercompany subsidiary, and then that way it'll hit both sides' books.
Right.
If that makes sense. And then you can still clear out the accounts receivable with the payment.
Right. And if we use the sales order process and the purchase order process, then at the end of the month, if they're out of balance, the system would recommend to clear the individual source documents, the sales orders against the purchase orders, or excuse me, the billing invoices versus the AP invoice, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that would be better for us, actually. Yeah.
Like here, if we go, so what it would do is you come here and it'd say, manage intercompany sales orders. And then I could come here and then it's going to create. So these are all the purchase orders that I've created between different subsidiaries. I can manually create the sales order here, or I can, select these in bulk. Maybe create a couple of these, generate my sales orders. Right here, let's just manually create one. So I have to enter my customer here. So if this was for my intercompany US West customer, I need to find the customer apparently. Okay. So here, I'll go ahead and select a couple of these. We can generate our sales orders. And then as soon as this loads, I'll have my, resulting sales order, and then that'll be linked to the purchase order. And then the resulting invoices and vendor bills would also be linked.
Right. And so on the AP side, do we need to receive against the purchase order before we accept the AP or the invoice?
If the item is marked as receivable, so you can have that item receipt step in there. If you wanted to skip that step, you could just use a non-receivable item type.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently, I had some. I don't know. One of my things had an error based on I didn't have the right intercompany vendor there. Whatever. Let me switch back to my other account.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can also follow up, I guess, with some additional screenshots on the process later on.
Sure, that's fine.
So I guess starting to come up on time here. I just want to make sure that we cover off, anything else or whatever's most important to y'all. Or if you can keep going, I'm happy to stay on too. Made it through most of this, so just kind of covered, everything up until this intercompany section, basically. Anything here that you wanted to make sure that we covered, next as far as like multi-book or the period close process, anything there?
Yeah, actually, that is kind of relevant to us, the multi-book and the FX.
Okay.
Not so much the fixed assets, but yeah, foreign exchange, consolidations, eliminations, and all that.
Perfect.
If you have a few moments for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as multi-book goes, so kind of the way that works when needed. So if you do need to report on your Vietnam GAAP as well as your US GAAP, basically the way it's set up is you'll only enter your transaction once. And then that can impact, any GAAP rules, any local statutory rules, or, depending on the number of multi-books or, accounting books that you have set up. So on your, your chart of accounts, you'll have a global mapping. So you'll have your, your base account, and then also your alternate account for any story account format versus the standard kind of NetSuite accounting format. And then that mapping is just on your chart of accounts here.
I see. So are those, do you have statutory accounts formats for financial reporting and all that for each country? Like, I know UK is quite different.
Yeah, so we do. We've got, so like, I guess this is the localized tax reports that we have. So we obviously support UK tax. We even do it a little bit better than US tax. So you can actually file, with Her Majesty's, whatever it is, right from NetSuite. Whereas, your US sales tax returns, you'll still be preparing those yourself, or using a partner there. And then as far as statutory reporting goes, there's definitely some pre-built stuff. So there are like UK versions of NetSuite, and then there are also partners if you need some additional help with any of that.
Great.
And then the other nice thing, so I can try to flip over to a multi-book account, but you can, so on your dashboard, if I don't have it set up here, but if I go to, my portlet settings, there'd be another drop down here for an alternate book. So if I wanted to switch to my IFRS book, I could do that here. So there's just another accounting book setting there. Let me see. So yeah, I think I actually have a One World multi-book account. So here I should be able, I don't know what my thing is. I should be able to come in here and update my dashboard for both of my multi-books. So I might have some setting. Oh, here we go. So I can come here to my book, and I could look at this at full IFRS adoption, and then that would update my dashboard here. Or should I could also update this for my local currency statutory book if I've got those, and then you see my whole dashboard update. So I've got a little bit of work to do on that demo account, but. And then as far as the period close process goes, so like I mentioned, exchange rates are going to be brought in, daily. And then we can go to the period close kind of checklist here. So we can come in, manage all my accounting periods. You can, close AR and AP independently. It's the next step. Apparently I'm a little bit behind on close here. So you can lock AR and AP independently. You can lock payroll independently as well if you're using NetSuite Payroll. You can lock the full period. And then what's going to happen is, as part of those process, you'll create intercompany adjustments, generate any intercompany cross charges. So that'd be for any kind of like intercompany time and expense and those things. Revalue any open foreign currency balances. And then calculate your consolidated exchange rates, finally eliminate your intercompany transactions. So all of that stuff is going to be, kind of part of your operational close list here. And then you can actually use NetSuite tasks and reminders to set up like period close checklists more for internal processes, or if you use some sort of checklist that your team collaborates on today, you could set that up and then use a safe search portlet to go in and notify each other of when you're crossing each kind of more personalized task off your list. So just as part of the period close process, all of the setup is going to be done on the front end. So it's going to eliminate, most of those journal entries and all those things for you. Obviously, we can walk through the NCI and the impact there. but this is the basic process for period close.
And then, is there a period 13 available?
So yeah, you can create an additional period. Most people will just reopen the month that the transactions already actually took place to make those changes. But you can set up an additional period. I guess what's your use case for that today?
We had an issue this last year on QuickBooks, and the timing of the audit. So the audit, we needed to close the audit as soon as possible, and it was already like April, May timeframe, and we ended up there was a series of entries that were not yet booked. And so what we told our parent was, or what they asked us to do was, if there's any more final audit adjustments, which were those entries essentially, those, can you have them go to next year? Or, we want to close out 2022. And so we debated that, and then we finally agreed on, okay, if on our system, if we had a period 13, we could just book all those residual or remaining journal entries from the auditors in that period 13. Then we can decide, if we want to include or exclude period 13 in the 2022 results or in the 2023 results. We have that level of flexibility and the audit trail if you have it in a separate segregated period, right? But there's other ways to handle it. I mean, we could have done it by setting up a new department, like a class code or a department just for period 13, right? We could have done that and then excluded it from 2022 or something,
Yep. But, so that's definitely something you can do. You can create, an extra period, or we have people that, we support a lot of different industries. So some have like 445 or 544, types where they do have that 13th period either at the front or the end of the year. So that's definitely an option if that's kind of what y'all already decided on.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it was a one-time thing. It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. So yeah, thoughts on like continuing on? Did you want to set up a separate call for potentially an SPB or the FP&A tool, and then that link to PowerPoint, as well as payroll to replace QuickBooks payroll? Or I guess, what are our thoughts there? We might need to have a follow-up call if everybody can't stay on.
Sure. Are we going to meet tomorrow as well?
So tomorrow's scheduled meeting is for our solution recommendation. So that's where Patrick walks through the statement of work. Right. It wouldn't be completing this section. We could power through, but I think, Vince, I don't want to put you on the spot.
I'm fine. Yeah, I mean, I'll personally, I promise I'm okay. Yeah.
I've got a question about payroll. So Claudia, I know, just gave you today the payroll qualification doc, and there's one question that doesn't add up in there. I just want to check. When we say number of tax IDs, we mean the number of entities that will have payroll employees.
And I believe that's just Logigear US, Tom, or do you also do the MKP payroll?
Logigear US.
Just one. Perfect.
I don't want to.
I mean, well, right now for MKP, I think we use ADP. So, I'm sorry. What was your question again about tax IDs?
Tax IDs for payroll. So since you're using ADP for MKP, we could keep that status quo. I think you're using QuickBooks for Logigear US. Since you're getting rid of QuickBooks, I think it makes sense to move to NetSuite payroll, in which case I think just one tax ID would be on NetSuite payroll.
Right.
At least to begin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at some point we might want to move, we're striving towards, consistency across the board, uniformity. So it might make sense at some point to migrate off of ADP into NetSuite for MKP as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we could power through and do. I think Tom would be really interested in the planning and budgeting portion, Vince.
Yeah.
That'll be good.
Awesome.
And one thing to note, Tom, as you're kind of walking through this is actually a module I did not include in our preliminary pricing. So I would need to provide that as an update. So, as you're kind of watching Vince go through this section, we'll just confirm with you if you think this is something you want to bulk into phase 1 or kind of put it aside for now.
So, yeah, we get logged back in. So in SPB, you would just access that through, NetSuite. So you just come to planning and budgeting, and then pull up, in SPB here. So all just one login and everything. All of your, NetSuite transactions, your classes, your segmentation, all that stuff's going to carry over here. This is kind of the dashboard for NSPB. So in this case, you can set up, different messages to different people that are maybe helping review, budget to actuals and variances, or maybe helping to prepare the actual operating budget for the next period. So real quick, let's go ahead and actually kind of set the stage with a couple slides, just so we can kind of recap everything that's involved in NSPB. We'll go ahead and start here. So basically, your data is going to be synced from NetSuite to NSPB on a daily basis, so you can always kind of push that to update if you just entered a ton of additional transactions or anything there. On a regular basis, you can go in there and review your budget to actuals, whether that's month over month variances or budget to actual variances. You can set those up with thresholds that you require explanations for. So that's always nice. When the audit comes around and they're doing their variance analysis, you could always just provide them with all the responses that you've created throughout the period here. And then as far as the actual budgeting process goes, so you'll refresh your budgeting templates. All that's really easy and streamlined. You'll go through and update your budget projections. There's some different kind of like trending and predictive analysis you can use to help you with those budget and OPEX predictions or projections. And then there's some what if scenarios that you can create. So if you want to create, an initial budget, and then maybe you want to pass it to Kenneth for him to do some updating there and everything. He can have is Kenneth's version of the budget, and Tuan can have his version of the budget. Maybe Tina has some budget updates that she can make. So you can have different what if scenarios with kind of approvals in place. So you'll go ahead and approve, or you can consolidate those budgets a little bit easier than if they were in multiple different Excel files all floating around. And then once that gets approved, you can push that back into NetSuite. So that's kind of the variance analysis and budgeting portion of the NetSuite planning and budgeting. And then in addition to that, there's also, Smart View. So we've got, financial statements and some things you can do, dashboards and reporting, expense and revenue projections, and then that link to Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. So I don't know if you use a PC or a Mac, but I recently got a Mac at work, and so Smart View only works with my Excel. But like I was saying, you can actually have Smart View links into PowerPoint if you use a PC. The other thing that you can do is just have your PowerPoint link to your Excel file, actually, and then just update your tables in Excel if you are a Mac user. So here, let me come into, so this is our month over month reporting. This is our current month versus budget. So here I've got this, focused in or filtered down to a single department or sales department here. So this is the level that, we want to do our different variance analysis. So any of these that, are highlighted gold or yellow here, those are the ones that we need to have an explanation for. We've already got a couple of those in there. If they were within our budget threshold, I think it's set to 10% right now. They'd show up as green, so we wouldn't have to, have an explanation for that piece.
This is for the entire company, or
so this right now. This is set to a single subsidiary and a single sales department, but we could switch this if we wanted, the total consolidated company, for instance. Come here and look at this at the company consolidated level, basically, and then set that, refresh, and then that would show us. Yeah, here, let me go. Yeah, so we could look at the total parent view or whatever we wanted to there. So
we can define those. I mean, if we wanted like a combination of LGVN and TPP, we could do that as well.
Yeah, exactly. If you just wanted to, so if you wanted to include all your subsidiaries and have variances like high level, you could have, reasons for, maybe a single subsidiary is driving that variance. Maybe there's, a few different reasons, but you can set that filter to a higher level if you wanted to.
Right. And if you double clicked on the variance, can you get to details?
Sorry, so if we double click to the variance here.
The variances, yeah. Like that 14,000.
Well, so that's just our total less our budget. So to get to the total here, I think we can actually drill to the current month accounting details. So then that'll pull up like the detail for that specific account, broken out by department. So that's just our payroll tax account. And right now it's broken out by department. You can actually set it up to link back to your general ledger in NetSuite as well. So if you wanted to, you could always drill through to the source transactions there.
Okay.
And it has, your transaction IDs that are all in NetSuite and the amounts of each of those individual transactions.
I see.
And then as far as, actual revenue budgeting and everything, we can come here and maybe look at our revenue by item. And then if we come to a point of view, you can look at maybe just a specific class and then a specific customer here. And if we wanted to, we could set this. Oh, here, let me find something with a little bit more data. Okay, so here's I don't know why that was mislabeled before, but here's our revenue by item. So here we can see, the forecast for, each one of our customers for a single item. So maybe that's, a service item or, one of the things that you're selling. Maybe this is for, a software license or something like that. And then we can use either prior year actuals if we wanted to, then we can adjust those by a percentage if we wanted to. So maybe we want to use prior year actuals for this customer, adjust that up by 12% based on some, contract, new contract agreements that we had with them. We can update that. And then as soon as we refresh that line, all these numbers would be updated for our new budget there. So you can also just come through and manually update budget numbers if you have other things that you know about that you need to add in. So that's kind of the revenue side. If you go to the OpEx, side, you can also do some, so that's more like top-down budgeting. We can also budget at a more detailed level. So in this case, this is our OpEx detail. In NetSuite, supplies expense is going to be kind of the base level that we'd be able to budget at. In NetSuite planning and budgeting, if you do need to get more detailed here, we can. sorry, we can, add additional levels of detail. So in this case, if we wanted to split out our supplies expense into new monitors, new chairs, all those things, have detail that all rolls up into our total supplies expense budget, that would work there. If we wanted to look at our predictive spread here, we can see and how we're trending for each one of these. Maybe we wanted to do some grid spread so we could update this cell value, or adjust it maybe by 10% based on some information that we had related to our payroll expenses. So we could update that. We could spread it proportionally across all the periods. We could even split it, whatever we needed to do. So just being able to update that, I guess probably easier to do that from here. So you can update the total, do that grid spread again. Maybe we just wanted to update this total to 250, spread that evenly across each one of those periods, or proportionally based on whatever's already there. We can do that, and it's going to update that whole row for us. So some nice little tools that we can update our budget with. And then we can do some predictive planning. So there's some different statistics in the background that can tell you kind of like best case, worst case scenarios for those. And then, based on prior year numbers, how realistic your predictions or budgets are. I'd say probably, more importantly, or one of the really nice things that's going to be helpful for you and then helpful for preparing any of those like board reports or reporting up to that parent subsidiary. So this is that same budget versus actual that we looked at from the actual NSPB view. You can actually make changes, right in this spreadsheet. So maybe this benefits expense also related here. We could update that. You can see that this was changed because it's a little bit different of a gold color. And then we can actually send this or submit the data, and then that's going to update our budget versus actual in NSPB. So this got changed to a lighter color. Yellow. Let me undo that. I could go ahead and submit the data if I just wanted the explanation to be the symbol that I accidentally pasted in there. But so when I hit submit data, that's actually updating NetSuite planning and budgeting, right from Excel. Same for that OPEX by department. So maybe I wanted to, instead of using 6-month rolling average, I wanted to use a 3-month rolling average for this budget. I could refresh this, and then that's going to show me my new 3-month rolling average. And I could, again, submit that data to update my OPEX budget, right from Excel. And then this is an income statement that you can pull up in NetSuite planning and budgeting. And then you can also do some work right from here. So if I come to planning and ad hoc, so some different things that we can do. This is great. I've got, actuals and budgets for the year, but maybe I just wanted to look at this as, quarterlies. I could go ahead and delete this. Instead of January, February, March, maybe I just wanted to look at Q1, Q2, Q3. Can enter all that, refresh my workbook. And then so this just pulled in instead of January, February, March. Now I've got totals for Q1, Q2, Q3. Maybe I just wanted to look at my T&E expenses, instead of all this stuff. Could go ahead and delete these other lines here, just so I've got just my T&E stuff in here. And then maybe I actually wanted, the budget for Q4 of this year. Go ahead and throw in up here budget and refresh this again. And so that pulled in my budget for Q3. Maybe I meant for Q4 though. So you can do a lot of ad hoc analysis, just right from NetSuite planning and budgeting, pulling all of your, numbers or everything right from NetSuite. Maybe I wanted to look at this by department. I could pivot my department to my column up there. Let me go ahead and refresh this. So it's going to show me, A quarterly breakdown of that's just my total department. Maybe I wanted to break this down to just a couple select departments though. So maybe instead of total, I just want to look at the marketing department up here. And also just copy and paste like you would do any of those things in Excel, refresh this. And now I've got, my quarterly budget and actuals just for my marketing department, just for certain T&E accounts there.
Yes, I'm very familiar with this Markville workbook. I used it for more than 5 years ago. This
Nice.
look
Yeah.
like the Hyperion management
So,
system, right?
Yeah, exactly right, John. So great that you knew that. So
HFM,
this
yeah.
is Oracle Hyperion and then updated for NetSuite, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the similar Oracle Hyperion that you know and love. So you'll be the NSPV expert. Sounds like.
No user adoption data.
That one is the all version, the version, the basic version from the financial Hyperion management system. Yeah, the point of view and the mark view soon. You need to act in Excel, act in.
Exactly, and that it'll help for things like alternative reporting hierarchies and all those types of things that you might have used it for as well.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome. So that's NetSuite planning and budgeting. In a nutshell, I'd say by far, the Smart View is probably one of the most helpful and beneficial pieces of that. But it's really going to help you refine your budgeting process from the group level, all the way down to each individual entity, I think, going forward too.
What are your thoughts, Tom, on this for kind of thinking about?
Yeah, it seems great. I mean, as most of the functionality that I could think of, or all of the functionality that I could think of at this point, have to drill into it a little bit more, obviously, and play around with it. But yeah, looks good. Just one question on so the forecasting. There's a process where we can update forecasts periodically for revenue as well as expenses, right? I think you showed us the expense side of things, but we could just, whenever we update revenue, we can flow that into this, and sometimes we may not use NetSuite for revenue forecasting initially, but maybe just use whatever we're currently using, like spreadsheets. Is that easy to get that into NetSuite without having to manually keying in all the data?
Yeah, so that's another great use case for NetSuite planning and budgeting. So you can just use that Smart View link. You can use those spreadsheets and formulas and everything that you've already got, and you can push that final budget into NetSuite. Using your account mappings and everything that you got in NetSuite planning and budgeting. If you didn't want to use that at all, you just want to keep your spreadsheets, you can absolutely use those spreadsheets to upload that final budget into NetSuite and then compare against all of your actuals for each one of your subsidiaries individually. So if you didn't need Smart View for phase one, you just wanted to stick with kind of core NetSuite budgeting, you could just use that spreadsheet that you've got today and then upload your final budget and compare against actuals in NetSuite for sure.
All right, great. And does it have the ability to project a balance sheet and a forward-looking cash flow statement?
Yep, absolutely. So if we go back to the financials, let me go home real quick. Cancel. Here. So yeah, I can go to my financials here, go to my balance sheet trending. So it's going to take sales information from the revenue forecast, and then you can have your percent of sales on credit, days sales outstanding. It's going to take the number of days of sales in the month. You can also, you don't have any inventory, but if you wanted to take your payables based on your cost of goods sales forecast or your other expense forecasts, you can do that as well. And then any balance sheet kind of adjustments that you want to make manually on top. And then so that'll kind of get you your forecasted balance sheet. So you have your balance sheet budget here that's basically taking all the income statement impacts and then any adjustments that you've got. And then as well as cash flows here. So standard NSPB offering. But what you would have is an amortization forecast and a depreciation forecast that you can generate out of NetSuite. And then, quickly update those numbers, either from SmartView or just in the UI here. So, really easy to export those pieces of the forecast from core NetSuite to a spreadsheet and then kind of copy and paste.
Right. Got it.
The other piece of NSPB that I didn't really get to show is just there are also some nice dashboards and reporting here. So if you wanted to drill into all of your operating activities and then see any adjustments to net income, drill down, any further, see your changes in accounts payable, your inventory. So kind of, a little bit interesting on the cash flow side, but that works for all of your other, reports. And there's like a OPEX and a revenue dashboard as well.
Great.
Would you like me to prepare pricing for you, Tom, so you can take a look at it? Or are you thinking more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
I'll do that.
Yeah, that would be nice.
And then Tuan would use it yourself. Kenneth, how many users? Because it is a separate user metric then.
Yeah, to be, let's see, myself, Kenneth, Tombo, obviously. Let's see, we don't have anybody at DWS at the moment, so it's primarily the three of us. Maybe one more. One more person. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. And then just real quickly to cover payroll, Tina, if you're still interested. So it should be a fairly similar process to what you're used to in QuickBooks. It is full service payroll. A couple things to note is, you do have to have your payroll submitted at least 2 banking days before the check date by 2 p.m. PST. So if I wanted everybody to get paid on Friday, I think I'd have to submit payroll before 2 p.m. on Wednesday, basically. So Thursday would be the first banking day, and then Friday would be that third banking day where direct deposits would go in. So the payroll process kind of starts off at the payroll manager dashboard. We'll go ahead and calculate your payroll batch. That's just generated based off everyone's, either pay rates and hours or salary information. You'll go through, verify that accuracy, and then you'll commit the payroll batch. So there's a nice comparative report here that helps you, find any payroll errors and then make any changes as needed. Then you'll commit that payroll batch. So when you do that, it posts the transactions to the general ledger, and then also updates any payroll reports for you. And then at that point, you can also allow your employees to view their pay stubs from the employee center.
So for QuickBooks, so if we process the payroll today and the employees can get a paycheck on the next day. So okay. I think days, and you said 2 days before the cutoff time, 2 p.m., that would be a problem because we terminated employees and we have to pay them right away or at least 1 day after the termination date. But this one for 2 days and the cutoff at 2 a.m., do you have like just 1 day pay direct deposit?
So like, you can also just like manually print paychecks as well. So that could be an option for those, just those final termination paychecks, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, for direct deposit, you would have to wait the 2 banking days. Yeah,
but with QuickBooks, we like one day. But if I process by 5 p.m., still okay. They can get their paycheck on the next day.
Okay, so that'd just be a little bit of a change in process for you, I think.
Okay.
Well, you would have more time, Tina, because you'd be automating a lot of different processes. So it might make you more
At the end of the day, I think it should still be a little bit easier for you.
more
Hopefully.
efficient. Yeah.
Something
to think about.
Yeah, just to give you, and you can always keep paying people through QuickBooks Payroll, then upload that payroll journal entry. Not a problem at all. So just to kind of run you through the process real quick. So this is your payroll manager dashboard. So similar to the other dashboards in NetSuite, if you wanted to look at, the last pay period, I could just drill into this number and it's going to take me to the payroll info from the last period. And you could drill into individual paychecks there if needed. So this is going to already suggest my next, twice a month payroll batch for me. So I'll go ahead and create that batch. It's going to allow me to select all the employees that I want to pay, and then it's going to calculate all of their different pay amounts for me based on either the hours that they've entered or their salaried amount.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got this nice payroll variance report here. So this is going to, let me know if there are any payroll variances from the last pay period. So I can see, Christian Walker here, last pay period, got paid $300. This pay period didn't have any. So maybe that was their final paycheck, and that's correct. Maybe I need to go in here and edit Christian's paycheck, though, because they forgot to enter their time. So I can pop open their current paycheck here, review that in detail. So I can come here, maybe I'll edit this. If I needed to update that for their hours, maybe they actually worked 25 hours this period, can go ahead and enter that. If I needed to, I could tag that to a project or something for, project reporting. And then it's going to go ahead and calculate for me, taxes, any contributions to their 401k, deductions, all those things. So I'll go ahead and save this and then recalculate those different payroll amounts. So again, it's just looking at the pay rates, any 401k contributions, any other deductions. Great. So now that that's calculated, we can go ahead and review the rest of these paychecks if we wanted to. We can see the actual paycheck amounts here, and then drill into each individual's paycheck if we had any other additional questions. See any tax and withholding amounts, any third-party payments that we need to make to 401k provider, those things. Since it looks good, we can go ahead and commit this payroll batch. And then that's going to send that to the processing center. Since this is before 2 p.m. tomorrow, direct deposits would hit everybody's account on Friday.
Okay.
So pretty simple and straightforward. I know when I was like in internal audit, that payroll comparison report was something that most people use just to make sure their payroll all looked good. You can also have you review any new employees or any employees with hourly variances as well. So some other good checks. And now we can see, we go back out to our dashboard. That payroll amount from before has been updated. We could drill back in and see all of those different payroll amounts. Maybe we wanted to see payroll by department, real quick. We could take a look at that for the month. So, Tina, any other questions or any concerns other than the time to process direct deposits?
So if we have issues like missed payment for the tax, like if we have an employee new employee in Indiana, and then when we register and then we get the tax ID, but sometimes it takes longer, then we have to process the payroll for that employee. So so then can you when we get the letter from them said that we owe taxes, so can we just solve that problem for us, or we have to take care by ourselves?
Yeah, so actually, that is going to be one of the nice things with NetSuite Payroll. So since it is full service, NetSuite files all state payroll taxes on your behalf, holds all the state tax payments in trust, and then pays those for you, files all your state and federal tax reports, as well as your annual reports, and then all of your W-2s. So
if you have a new employees, do you register the business for us, or we have to do it?
So when you have a new employee, you'd set up that new employee's jurisdiction in the system. So you'd have to set them up, as Indiana and everything. And then we'll go ahead and calculate all the appropriate payroll taxes for you and then remit them, based on that employee's workplace and jurisdiction.
But I mean, like for the tax ID, we need to register to get the tax ID for the new state. So NetSuite doing that?
Yeah, I believe that NetSuite helps you register for your tax ID for the new state, but I'll double check on that one. As far as if you have to register to get a new state tax ID in each state, or if that's something that we can help you with.
Okay, because QuickBooks they don't do that, and then anytime we have a problem, it takes them for a month to give me the answer.
Yeah. So I think our hopefully we're more responsive than that. But yeah, I'll have to look. I don't know if we'll be able to file for those tax numbers on your behalf, or if that's something that you'd have to do before you set up the jurisdiction in NetSuite or the tax nexus in NetSuite.
Yeah. I think that's
okay, cool. Well, I appreciate y'all for sticking on with me. If we have any other questions, happy to hang out and answer those. Otherwise, I'll pass it back to Claudia for next steps.
Thank you. And I won't keep you long. We have everything kind of set up already for the remaining steps. So just to recap, Tom, I know you've got a busy calendar. If I zoom in here, can you see it okay? So we just finished this larger meeting. Tomorrow we'll have a solution recommendation with Patrick. Patrick, I'll let you take the floor if you have any pending questions that you need in preparation for tomorrow's meeting.
It's more we need to regroup after to see if we need to close on some things. Michael has some things we want to discuss in a forum. So let's discuss that and see if it changes the schedule.
Okay, fantastic. So tentatively, we've got this booked, and then Danielle and I will be meeting with you as well, Tom, to talk through final pricing. But I will go ahead and update the pricing sheet that I sent over last week with the NSPB, the RFP&A platform fees as well. Any feedback? Any questions? No, this was a lot of information, and it was a long meeting, so we appreciate your time. We hope you found it beneficial and exciting, something different than what you were exposed to in the past.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very good session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks so much, Vince. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Vince. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
Bên em xài bản Oracle Netsuite hay là bản nào? Oracle ERP bên em là Oracle Netsuite là GDE. GDE khác Netsuite đó. GDE buộc. Đó là các bạn Netsuite. Đây nó in bản nào màn hình nè. Nó là cái này là cái Netsuite là GDE. Cái con xài màn hình Excel Smart Viewer. Thôi business xuống business xuống á là nó lưu cái dữ liệu ở trên cái server của riêng của em, chi phí nó tốn kém hơn. Chưa chắc an toàn hết rồi. Cũng từ cái đội đó có chuyên nghiệp thì nó an toàn, không chuyên nghiệp thì nó cũng hỏng hết.